Tonight, teaching the children of terrorists, Democrats' next move on DACA, and keeping the government out of homeschooling. At least 2 students are dead after a classmate opened fire in a Kentucky high school today. The victims, a boy and a girl, were both 15 years old, and 17 other people were injured. The shooter, who is also 15, hasn't been named yet. He was armed with a handgun and was taken into custody in what the state's governor described as a non-violent arrest. Prosecutors are set to charge him with murder and attempted murder.
The Kentucky State Police has been in this area recently teaching students and faculty how to respond to an active shooter situation. And everybody in that high school reacted appropriately.
The Justice Department confirmed that Special Counsel Robert Mueller's office interviewed Attorney General Jeff Sessions last week, and former FBI Director James Comey was also reportedly interviewed last year. Sessions is the first known interview of a member of President Trump's cabinet for Mueller's investigation into Russia's election interference and the question of whether the president obstructed justice. Sessions recused himself from the Russia probe after he failed to tell Congress he met with Russia's then ambassador to the U.S. twice during the 2016 campaign. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the remaining members of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, have reached a revised agreement. Exactly 1 year ago today, President Trump signed an executive order pulling the U.S. out of the trade deal. But 11 countries are now going ahead with plans to take down trade barriers anyway, though under the heading of a slightly longer name. They're expected to sign the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, in March. A judge in Myanmar has postponed a decision on whether to grant bail for 2 detained Reuters journalists until early next month. The 2 men were reporting on the military crackdown that's pushed hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims to flee to Bangladesh. Today in court, according to Reuters, it was revealed that Myanmar police went straight to the country's president for permission to investigate whether the journalists violated a colonial-era secrecy law, bypassing the usual channels and timetable for that kind of request. If convicted, the journalists face up to 14 years in prison. Pakistani police have arrested a suspect in the brutal rape and murder of 7-year-old Zainab Ansari, who was found dead in a garbage dump on January 9th. Police say the 24-year-old man has confessed. Last year, there were at least 11 similar cases in the Kasur district where Ansari lived, and her death led to protests across the country. Demonstrators say the police and the government aren't doing enough to protect children, and they're criticizing a culture of silence around sexual assault. Secretary of Defense James Mattis was in Jakarta today to meet with his Indonesian counterpart to talk military cooperation and counterterrorism strategy. Indonesia is one of the U.S.'s most important security partners in the Pacific, but it's also a major exporter of terrorists. Hundreds of Indonesians have traveled to Iraq and Syria to join ISIS. And at home, authorities are monitoring more than 2,500 people linked to extremist groups. The government has implemented de-radicalization camps for convicted militants, but getting a handle on the problem may mean starting earlier.
Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. Semangat pagi. Semangat pagi. Hari ini ujian apa?
These 20 boys attend Al Hidayah, an Islamic boarding school in Sumatra. Founded in 2015, it's the only school in Indonesia dedicated to the children of terrorists. The man behind the school is Khairul Ghazali, who's actually a convicted terrorist himself. He was a member of Jamaat Islamiyah, the terrorist organization behind bombings on the island of Bali in 2002 and 2005.
Jadi awal ide mendirikan sekolah ini ketika saya berada di dalam penjara. Jadi banyak anak-anak, kawan-kawan itu yang putus sekolah, tidak sekolah sama sekali, terlantar. Dan itu berbahaya karena akan dimanfaatkan oleh jaringan sel-sel teroris untuk direkrut menjadi teroris-teroris baru.
When you were a terrorist preacher, did you also brainwash children into the idea of carrying out violent jihad?
Yeah.
Because you have experience in brainwashing, as you say that you did, what you're doing now is reverse brainwashing.
Ya, jadi ini termasuk brainwash juga, cuma mengembalikan mereka dari ide-ide menjadi teroris.
The students take classes like engineering and music and help out on the school's farm. But Ghazali thinks that the way they teach Islam is the key to changing the students' minds.
Jadi ketika kita bina di sini, memang pada awalnya mereka penuh kebencian kepada negara, kepada sistem yang ada, yang dianggap kufur. Tapi lambat laun kita ajarkan bahwa Islam itu tidak seperti itu. Yang pada mulanya mereka sangat membenci polisi, malahan sekarang ada yang cita-citanya menjadi polisi.
Many of the students have come to the school through Ghazali's old networks. He believes there are as many as 3,000 children of terrorists across Indonesia. Azam and his two brothers were some of the school's first students.
Dulu seingatnya belajar megang-megang senjata gitu. Diajari sama begitu.
What did you think about that then?
Biasa aja.
What was it like when your dad was sent to jail? Did people treat you differently?
Ada, sebagian ada. Diejek-ejek gitulah, anak teroris gitu.
Ini asramanya si Ajam. Mana ada sujian kau tadi?
Their father, Jamarin, spent 5 years in prison for robbing banks and helping to fund extremist training camps.
Cocok semua.
If your sons didn't come to this school, do you think that there is a likelihood they would have become terrorists themselves?
Jadi kemungkinan kalau orang yang tidak sekolah seperti ini 50%. Bagaimanapun anak itu ingin mencontoh seorang ayahnya. Jadi begitu mereka sini, nampaknya mereka itu sudah tidak lagi mencontoh saya gitu.
The government has now taken notice of the school's progress, giving administrators money to buy land and to construct new buildings, including a new mosque.
Ya, ini tentang master plan pembangunan pesantren 10 tahun ke depan.
Next year's class will triple the number of students and include girls for the first time.
Harusnya dicontoh oleh dan digunakan di tempat-tempat lain, bahkan di seluruh dunia, agar pendekatan terhadap terorisme ini bukan hanya penegakan hukum dan kekerasan, tetapi juga pendekatan dari hati ke hati.
The UN Special Envoy to Yemen has announced he's resigning next month, the second to step down from that role in 3 years of fighting. In that time, the country's civil war, which has pitted a Saudi-led coalition against Iran, has shown virtually no signs of letting up. Just this week, the UN announced that a record high 3/4 of the population is badly in need of humanitarian aid, another indicator of what's already been called the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Vice News met with one man last summer who thought he'd been promised a chance to escape it all and start over in the US. We caught up with him again, now back in Yemen.
Just over a year ago, college student Abdualrahman Zaid left his home in Ib in southwest Yemen for a fresh start in the US.
طبعا ما لا شك فيه أن أسرتي كانت تحلم عند سفري إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية بحياة يعني بتحسين الوضع الاقتصادي نوعا ما.
In 2016, Zaid had won what's known as the US Green Card Lottery. He was chosen for one of the 50,000 green cards available to foreign citizens every year.
بصراحة كنت أتخيل كما يتخيل أي فرد من أفراد العالم الثالث عندما يسافر لدول العالم الأول. بصراحة يعني كنت أحلم بحياة يسودها الأمن والاستقرار والعدالة وغير ذلك.
The diversity visa was going to be Zaid's golden ticket out of Yemen, which has been ravaged by civil war, famine and cholera. Since the US closed its embassy in Yemen because of the war, he would have to travel to Malaysia to finish interviewing for his green card.
بعد فوزي في القرعة العشوائية الهجرة إلى الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية قمنا ببيع هذه الأرض من أجل الوصول إلى أراضي الولايات المتحدة الأمريكية.
With about $12,000 in his pocket, he headed to Malaysia in December 2016 to complete the visa process and to begin planning for a new life in the US.
أنا ذاهب إلى نيويورك بروكلين. طبعا أول عمل إن شاء الله بإذن الله درس لغة إنجليزية أواصل الماستر وأعمل أيضا.
Zaid had to wait months as the embassy processed his application. Meanwhile, Trump's travel ban made its way through the courts and the State Department changed up an important policy. Zaid would now need to have a family member living in the US to vouch for him in order to qualify for his visa. But he didn't have any relatives in America. And in September, the State Department told him all the visa spots had already been filled.
الآن لا أدري، لا أمتلك أي خطة ولا أدري ماذا أصنع.
Out of money and with no other options, he had to return to Yemen.
شعوري بعودته إلى البلاد يعني كشعور أي أب، يعني عاد إليه ابنه سالما، وما كنت أتوقع هذا، وقد ضحينا يعني بممتلكاتنا ممتلكات العائلة ببيعها وجبناها يعني لدخوله أمريكا.
Zaid dropped out of college to focus on moving to the US. Now, with no chance of entering, he's starting his studies again.
بالنسبة لقرار تركي للدراسة كان أصعب قرار اتخذته في حياتي، خاصة أنني تركت دراستي قبل أسبوع واحد فقط قبل أسبوع واحد من الامتحانات. طبعا ما حدث لي بصراحة قلب خططي رأسا على عقب.
Since Zaid returned, he's been detained twice by the Houthi forces who now control his city. Most recently for selling bags on the street, just trying to earn some money to pay for school.
احنا قلنا عندما انشأنا الدائرة وصلنا عند إنشاء تقطيع صح؟ الآن طبقت تقصد الذهبية اللي هي باستخدام الماء.
أخاف كثيرا وأنا قلق جدا على مستقبلي إزاء هذه الحرب التي تجري في هذا البلد. وهناك عقبات لكنني أسعى جاهدا من أجل استئناف دراستي، لكن بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى سييسر الله هذا.
A day after agreeing to end the government shutdown, Washington Democrats are dealing with an unfamiliar sensation: the wrath of their own base. Dreamers and their progressive allies are furious that Democrats in the Senate gave in after just 3 days. The message from Democratic leaders: we've got this and we're fighting for you. But there's a difference between having principles and having a plan of attack.
Senate Democrats know what they want: a pathway to citizenship for dreamers. They just don't seem to have much of a plan how to get it. We know from a couple of bipartisan immigration bills that Dems are willing to offer some concessions to Republicans. For instance, making the diversity visa lottery program merit-based and hiring more immigration court judges. But these are minor concessions, and Republicans pan them. And today, Chuck Schumer took one of their major bargaining chips off the table when he told the White House Democrats would no longer support funding the border wall. That was their main selling point for House conservatives, who were already digging in their heels against anything that offered a pathway to citizenship for Dreamers. And the House is probably the biggest roadblock to a deal, provided that a bill makes it through the Senate in the first place. When I asked Nevada Senator Catherine Cortez Masto how Democrats will get a bill through both chambers, she didn't really have an answer. What do Democrats want to see from an eventual deal on DACA?
It has to be a pathway to citizenship. And if they don't start there, then we're going to continue this fight.
That's something that House Republicans have said is a non-starter, though. So how do you expect to get something passed through both chambers if that's your demand?
Well, that's where negotiation comes in. They want certain things. We want certain things. At the end of the day, I don't know about you, but it's going to be hard-pressed to tell these kids that, sorry, we want you here, but we don't want you to be a citizen.
That makes sense for Democrats, but for conservative House Republicans, it doesn't seem like they care about that kind of thing. So how do you convince
But the good news is this, we don't need unanimous consent. We don't need 100% voting to support this.
Well, Paul Ryan's not going to bring it to the floor unless it has majority support from Republicans.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, what my colleagues, both houses, need to understand is 80% of the country supports this. This is the right thing to do. If you want to stand on the right side of history.
But being on the right side of history doesn't mean much if you don't have the votes to pass your plan into law. Democrats do have one hardball tactic to win those votes, shutting down the government over DACA again. But that's risky. A CNN poll last week found voters didn't think saving DACA was worth the shutdown, and there's no guarantee it would work. It didn't this weekend, which may be why Cortez Masto is fundamentally non-committal. Do you think Democrats should be willing to force another shutdown if a DACA deal is not reached?
It'll be interesting to see, again, we're in the same boat. Another continuing resolution, more of the same. I don't trust Mitch McConnell. We've seen him break promises to his own, not only to Democrats, but his own caucus. That's why I say we're going to hold their feet to the fire. Now let's go after
That sounds like a yes to a potential shutdown in the future.
I can't speak what's going to happen in the future, but I can tell you from my perspective, the Republicans have now publicly said, this leadership has publicly said what it's willing to do, and everybody's watching.
David and Louise Turpin appeared in court last week to face a mountain of charges, including torture, false imprisonment, and abuse. News reports that the two had kept their 13 children shackled and starving well into adulthood shocked the country. And it's already prompting California legislators to push for more oversight of homeschooling, which shielded the Turpin children from any interaction with state authorities. Under the current system, setting up a private homeschool in California is as simple as completing an online form, with basics including the school's name and address, who's in charge, and the number of students. It's education with few rules, and that's not an accident. Dexter Thomas sat down with one advocate who's helped lead the fight to keep the state out of homeschooling.
A lot of people, I think, are looking at what happened in Paris, California, and they're saying, oh my gosh, how could these people have been running this home school that was like a dungeon or something? Why is it that there was not more oversight over this school?
Right, and you have to, the school part is the red herring. If the family didn't say that it was running a private school and just kept its 12 children in a dungeon-like environment, just take the school out of it. What rights does the state have to oversee how parents raise their children? And, the truth is, the state has no right to come into your home without reasonable cause, okay? And you want that. You do not want to live in a society where the state can enter your home and inspect what you're doing. You don't
I think the tough thing there is that if there's nobody checking, period, like there's no sort of outside check to see, are these kids safe? So if you're sending your kids to public school, God forbid you're abusing them.
Right.
A teacher's gonna hopefully notice.
Right, hopefully, or, these people were hell-bent on hiding their children from the world. And I don't know what the remedy for that is.
I think there are a lot of people now who feel like homeschooling is enabling bad parents, like basically evil parents to do these really terrible things, and we must stop this somehow.
You know, but it isn't. And bad parents are going to be bad parents. Criminals are going to be criminals, regardless. Crime will happen. It is bad. But do you really infringe on the rights of every other citizen to try and prevent that case there? And my belief is no, you don't do that.
Holy smokes. I can headbang, but I don't want to damage these headphones. And if I'm taking this the wrong way, I hope you know that you can tell me whatever you're thinking is when you put me in the spotlight. This is Lil Peep with Marshmallow. And Lil Peep, of course, is the young man who unfortunately passed away recently. The processing on the vocals and the production, there's a lot going on there. There's a fifth harmony, maybe even a fourth, but it's not consistent, it comes and goes. But from other things I've heard of Lil Peep, that's somewhat consistent with his delivery. And it's just very sad that he won't be making any more music on this plane, maybe on in another realm.
You told me you loved him in Georgia. Your heart's in the ground frozen over. My heart's in the sky supernova.
There's an appetizing quality, especially to the bass, where the bass is being distorted slightly. Crappy audio playback devices in this current age have actually led to interesting innovations, like that bass sound. Well, he's singing about a supernova, and I was curious as to how that related to the idea of an imploding star. But perhaps he's describing his life as imploding.
Boy, oh boy, girl, oh girl. Boy, oh boy, girl, oh girl. Boy, oh boy, girl, oh girl. Like who the fuck you like? Fuck the world.
I like that a lot. It's sort of a saxophone sound motif and that sort of reggaeton beat. It's also, for better or worse, guilty of what is said to be one of the worst rhyme offenses, which is world and girl. And I like music that has this drone. It doesn't need to be a lot of key change, action, or parts. It's just, you just could listen to it forever. Oh, that was excellent. There's this feeling of perfect love that comes out of a certain kind of, I guess what you'd call P-Funk specifically. And then you can just zero in on any particular element. It's all stacked in and focus on the bass line, focus on the hi-hat, focus on the vocal part. It makes me feel better about everything. It's a healing feeling. It's extremely powerful.
That's Vice News Tonight for Tuesday, January 23rd.